The Loire is one of Europe's last free-flowing rivers, one of the few whose banks have not been developed and confined by man. As the seasons change, its water level rises and falls, and the morphology of its channel alters. How do plants and animals adjust to these variations? How do they cope with the alternation of drought and flooding? The living, free-flowing Loire River illustrates one of Europe's distinctive natural ecosystems. It is late winter, and the Loire River has overflowed its banks and flooded the surrounding countryside. It's in spate, swelled by seasonal rains. Flooding caused by variations in the water level of the Loire and its tributaries is a regular occurrence here in the low-lying valleys of the Anjou area. These water meadows are a rich food source and are frequented by a wide range of species. Aquatic birds and animals take floods in their stride. After all, they don't interfere with the cormorants fishing or the coypu swimming. In March, the warmer weather turns the carp's thoughts to romance. They twist and turn in the water that covers the drowned meadows. This thrashing is characteristic spawning behavior. Each female carp produces thousands of eggs, which adhere to the meadow grasses. Carp are too big for egrets and herons to tackle. They can be up to 1 meter long and weigh up to 30 kilograms. In early spring, the floodplains of the Loire are a popular rest stop for migrating birds. These small waders are on their way from Africa to Northern Europe, the Netherlands, or even Iceland. They are black-tailed godwits. The male is already in breeding plumage and is more russet-colored than the female. The black-tailed godwit is long-legged and has a long, flexible beak which it uses to probe the ground for food. Godwits live in groups and influence each other's behavior. If one is frightened by something, the whole flock takes off in a line. Where the smaller Loire River flows into the Loire, its banks are thick with snowdrops. Their demure white bells are one of the first signs of spring. The swan's plumage echoes the white of the snowdrops. At over 20 kilograms, they are Europe's heaviest flying birds. They are also the featheriest. Each bird has 25,000 feathers, almost 20,000 of them on its immensely long neck. Swans are totally herbivorous, but in strong river currents, they still have to catch their food. Beneath the swan's webbed feet stretches a vast underwater world. Round-bodied fish like bream and carp live in the slow-moving section of the river where they do not have to battle with strong currents. But the river is home to a huge variety of fish. Freshwater species like roach, gudgeon, pike perch, trout, and barbels, and migratory species such as salmon, eels, and lampreys. The waters of the Loire are a glittering treasure trove. Some types of fish elude their predators by swimming in close-knit shoals, making each individual more difficult to single out. In the shadow of the bank lurks a deadly carnivore. The pike hunts by lying in ambush. It's a very fast swimmer, but can only maintain its speed over short distances, so it lies in wait until potential prey comes within its reach. Then shoots out of its hiding place at nearly 50 kilometers per hour, stretching its gaping jaws to engulf its victims. The waters of the Loire enrich the soil of the floodplain with nutrients from upstream. These valleys are home to a rare plant that likes very wet conditions, the fritillary. It's unique in having checkered petals and only grows in places where rivers can overflow their banks. It is April now. A bird of prey with a dramatic bandit's mask is surveying its territory. Spring is well underway now, and the water level has sunk. The rise and fall of the water level is part of the great river's natural rhythm, as if it were steadily breathing in and out in time with the seasons. But free-flowing rivers are now a rarity. If the Loire has remained a wild river, it is because environmentalists have battled to keep it so, fighting dam projects and unnecessary confinement. Ospreys sum up this triumph. Formerly extinct in mainland France, eradicated by human beings, they have come back to the Loire area of their own accord. They are unusual among birds of prey in that they only eat fish. Their fishing technique is to hover, soar upwards, and then dive on their prey like a bolt from the blue. It is May, and something curiously like snow is falling in the woodland that lines the riverbanks. Black poplars are shedding their downy seeds, scattering them on the wind to grow wherever they chance to blow. Transported by the current to suitable places to germinate. Black poplars are now only found growing wild in woodland next to free-flowing rivers. They play a part in a highly effective system of water purification that is vital for both human beings and wildlife, in which the river water is filtered through the roots of its plant species. Beneath the trees, the backwaters teem with hidden life. A graceful figure skater glides along the surface. The feet of the common pond skater, or water strider, are coated with a film of oil that allows it to float without breaking the water's surface. The insect makes sure it keeps itself clean. Its antennae and proboscis are valuable tools that have to be maintained. Meanwhile, another aquatic insect is having a ball. Whirligig beetles belong to the same order of insects as ladybirds. They spend their whole time skimming round in circles, sweeping the surface for food. Their eyes are divided into two parts, so that they can watch what's going on above and below the surface at the same time. Pond skaters and whirligig beetles continually patrol the backwaters of the river. These trees were torn up by the roots during a previous winter spate. But although they have fallen over, they are not dead. From their reclining position, they have grown into candelabra shapes. The undergrowth of solid sections of riverbank is home to wildflower species. Jack by the hedge gives off its distinctive garlic scent, while members of the Labiatae family that includes dead nettles unfold their complex petals. Lithe as an eel, the otter ripples between water and land. Otters are rare. Formerly persecuted by human beings, they now have protected status and have returned to the banks of the Loire. They even come out in broad daylight, as if to show that they have begun to trust human beings again. Watching the otter brings it home to one just how wild this ecosystem is. Otters don't waste their time telling fishermen's tales. This must be what is meant by nature red in tooth and claw. As well as being webbed for swimming, their paws have sharp claws for gripping slippery fish skin. Their razor-sharp teeth are set back far in their mouths, so they have to hold their prey by its sides. After a dip, a sand bath is just the ticket. Rubbing dry helps maintain the otter's fur. Otters have only a thin layer of fat, so they rely on their fur for warmth. And besides, that sand feels delicious. It is late May, and the river has undergone another transformation swollen by late rains. In just 2 days, the water level has risen by over a meter, increasing the flow from 350 to over 4,000 cubic meters a second. Land animals are well advised to head for high ground. But where has all this water come from? Well, chiefly from heavy rains. Trickles become streams, and tributaries merge to form powerful rivers, as here, downstream of the confluence of the Loire with the Allier. Swollen with rain, the various branches spill over and divide to create a meandering green labyrinth, like the veins of a giant arm. At times like this, the Loire is reminiscent of the Amazon, the greatest of all wild rivers. When the river is in spate, minerals and organic matter are swept along by the current. Sand, shingle, and even tree trunks migrate downstream. The speed of flow varies according to the slope of the riverbed. In some places, the river deposits silt, forming an islet, while in others, it sweeps an existing islet away. The entire landscape shifts under the pressure of the flow. In the jungle on the river bottom, a pike lies in wait. The pike rules the roost here. It is the super predator of the river. It knows every inch of the river and fears no one, with the possible exception of human beings. Back on the floodplain, the cattle are knee-deep in water again. For the gulls, it's a home away from home, and the pike's territory has grown considerably. Just above the water meadows, a bird moves discreetly through the plant cover. Corncrakes are normally shy, but this male bird is emboldened by the mating season. He needs to attract a hen bird's attention. For the moment, he's not having much success. The corncrake is one of Europe's rarest species. Pesticides and the disappearance of hay meadows have destroyed its habitat. This is the westernmost corncrake population in continental Europe and the biggest in France. A river wouldn't be a river without an angling contest. The contestants in this one are a few egrets and a lot of gray herons. The fact that they've congregated here in such numbers indicates an exceptional abundance of fish. Usually, large wading birds jealously guard their feeding grounds. Even so, the contestants are ready to lash out at any moment. Gray herons are persistent adversaries, and intimidation is part of the dueling ritual. Sometimes, threatening behavior is enough to discourage an opponent. It is June, and this tributary of the Loire is a mass of bloom. The flowers belong to a plant called water crowfoot, which thrives in fast-flowing water. It has evolved long, narrow leaves that do not catch in the current. The rippling mass looks like flowing tresses. Sometimes a single plant can provide the basis for a specific ecosystem. Here, the water crowfoot benefits mallards, swans, and coots, which forage for plants and aquatic insects in the thick carpet of flowers. In this idyllic spot, a pair of swans launch into a stately waltz. What price the blue Danube? Lissome and joyous as ever, the otter takes a dip near its holt, paddling with its webbed feet and using its tail as a rudder. Otters have a territory of several square kilometers, which they travel continuously on land and underwater. The otter returns to the main branch of the river. It is late June, and the water level has gone back down. Above the otter's holt, the highest section of the alluvial woodland includes towering oak trees. They attract a monster among European insects, the stag beetle. These gigantic beetles can be up to 8 centimeters long. They get their name from the huge antler-like mandibles of the male. They breed in decaying wood, on which their flying larvae feed. Stag beetles are preyed on by numerous birds. Perched on a dead tree, a young cuckoo enjoys a tasty morsel. The cuckoo is one of the birds that can eat hairy caterpillars. Their bristly spines lodge in the bird's stomach lining. But it has evolved a way of dealing with this problem. When the cuckoo's stomach lining is coated in caterpillar hairs, it regurgitates it and starts all over again with a new stomach lining. As the summer progresses, the temperature gets hotter and the water recedes. The thousands of metric tons of sand displaced by the Loire during its winter spate now emerge. Once again, the river has shaped the landscape. It has sculpted new beaches, cliffs, and deserts. Ribbons of black poplars follow the winding course of the Loire, clinging onto the tops of its bars and banks. From one season to the next, water hollows out and pares away the banks. Whole sections collapse, creating cliffs as high as 10 meters in places and enriching the waters of the river with minerals. It is July. The areas left high and dry by the falling water level become arid, baking miniature deserts in the summer sun. For the common tern, the beaches of the Loire are as good as the seashore. The birds lay and incubate their eggs on these accumulations of mineral sediment. These temporary islands provide the terns with safe nesting sites out of reach of predators. The Loire is the only river in France with common tern breeding areas along much of its course. Like ospreys, terns spot their prey from the air and then dive to catch it. The bird adroitly turns its catch round to swallow it head first, so that the sharp bones of the fins do not drag in its throat. Not far off, little ring plovers strut like clockwork toys. This one is determined to defend its place in the sun. Good nesting sites are few and far between. The pied wagtail hunts insects at the water's edge, oblivious to the other species' quarrels. As well as being smaller than the common tern, The little tern has a yellow beak. This pair are building their nest, or rather, digging a hole in the sand for the hen bird to lay her eggs in. They make a thorough job of it, patiently moving each grain of sand to make the nest more comfortable. Little terns have learned to live with the river's changes of mood. If their brood is swept away by a flash flood, they will start all over again, building a new nest as the water level goes back down. It is August, the moment the sandbanks start to show above the water. Pioneer vegetation sets about colonizing the new world. The mineral environment gradually acquires plant cover. The flowers that colonize these miniature deserts include rare species, like the so-called common fleabane. These fragile plants may well be uprooted by floods. Colonization of the sandbanks is a gradual process. The miniature desert is home to miniature predators, lurking in the pioneer vegetation. Wolf spiders do not weave webs. They have 8 eyes and live in burrows from which they ambush their prey. Spider-hunting wasps also dig burrows in the sand. They work tirelessly to create an underground store for the prey their larvae will feed on. The pioneer vegetation gradually colors the sandbanks, and the riverbanks hum with the sound of pollinators gorging themselves on nectar and pollen and fecundating the flowers. Unfortunately, some plants are all too successful. Primrose creeper may look pretty, but it's a ruthless expansionist. It is what's called an invasive species, an alien plant or animal that upsets the balance of local ecosystems. Human beings, who could never leave things well alone, imported primrose creeper from South America. Today, it's spreading like a yellow and green tide. It monopolizes available light and can quickly smother entire branches of a river. Some poplar seeds have taken root here. For the moment, they have escaped the primrose creeper menace and grown into saplings on the sandbanks. Whether they survive to become mature trees depends on the movements of the river. Will they have time to put down roots before the next spate? Trees are the final stage of plant colonization, the sign that land has prevailed over water. Riverside willows and poplars retain moisture like sponges. Their soft wood is easy to gnaw. A family of beavers have taken up residence on the riverbank. Beavers are rodents. They eat aquatic plants, willow leaves, bark, and branches. Unlike their American cousins, European beavers rarely build large dams. They prefer to dig lodges in riverbanks. They are easily recognized by their flat tail, which they use to propel themselves along in the water like a mermaid. Wild beavers had become extinct here and have been reintroduced. They have gradually succeeded in recolonizing the banks of the free-flowing Loire River. In late summer, the Loire dries to a river of sand. For centuries, sediment from watercourses has been swept along until it reaches the sea and forms coastal beaches. The coastline itself has been modeled by free-flowing rivers. At over 1,000 kilometers long, the Loire is one of Europe's great rivers. It is autumn, and migrating birds are flying south. Most of the cormorants will fly on to Spain, but some will stay here on the banks of the Loire, taking advantage of the bounty of the great river. And here come more large birds, passing through on their way from Scandinavia. With their dangling legs, cranes in flight drift gracefully across the sky like a ballet of parachutists. Whether in flight or on land, cranes can't help making a song and dance about things. They constantly communicate with other members of their group by sound and movement. They have the longest trachea of all birds, accommodated in their elongated neck and looped around in their sternum like a built-in trombone. For the cranes, the banks of the Loire are just a rest stop on their way to southern Europe. The brass band soon sets off again. Like the migrating birds, the river acts as a link, a living artery that connects the ecosystems all along its course, from the mountain where it originates to the ocean it flows into. The Loire represents one of the triumphs of France's conservation movement. Successful campaigns to keep it a free-flowing river have ensured the survival of such emblematic river species as beavers, otters, terns, and black poplars. For as long as the Loire remains a free-flowing river, the rise and fall of its waters will continue to shape some of the most beautiful wild landscapes in Europe.